Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe. Stories like this don't just disturb the night, they expose the truth hiding in plain sight. And trust me, you're going to want to see how this one ends. The sirens had been screaming for nearly 7 minutes by the time Detective Mara Keaton reached the waterfront. The November air was cold enough to sting her throat when she stepped out of the cruiser. A low fog crept over the harbor, swallowing the glow of the streetlights until they looked like dying embers. It was quiet, too quiet for an active crime scene. Officers stood stiffly along the dock, speaking in low voices, their radios hissing static. There was no chaos, no swarm of investigators, no panicked crowd. Just a square of yellow tape, a small group of uniformed officers, and a single top draped over something lying near the pier's edge. The kind of stillness that told Mara one thing: whatever happened here, it wasn't quick, and it wasn't clean. She approached Officer Dane Hollister, who was staring out over the black water. "You called it in," Mara said. He nodded without looking at her. "Jogger found it at 5:42 a.m. said he almost tripped over it." Mara pulled on gloves. "What are we looking at?" "Not a body," Dane said. "Not exactly." That single phrase punched a cold knot into her stomach. When Dane finally turned, his face was pale and tight, the way it always was when something didn't make sense. He led her beneath the tape. The wooden planks of the pier were slick, still wet from an early rain. Mara crouched beside the top and lifted the corner. Her breath caught. It wasn't a person. It was a bag, heavy, soaked, and tied shut with a plastic zip tie. Next to it lay a phone, screen cracked, still faintly glowing with the last text received: "I'm on my way. 10 minutes." The name attached to the message: Jenna Morales. 24 years old. Missing for exactly 9 hours. The bag didn't contain anything violent or graphic. Instead, it was filled with Jenna's belongings, neatly arranged as if someone had intentionally packed them. A wallet, house keys, a folded coat, her ID badge from the community arts center where she worked. Everything she carried every day, except the one thing that mattered most. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. No witnesses. Just her phone and a bag no one should have left at a pier unless they wanted it to be found. Mara stood, the fog curling around her like smoke. This wasn't a robbery. Someone staged this. Dane nodded. That's not even the strangest part. Harbor Patrol found her car 2 blocks from here. Parked perfectly. Nothing inside except an empty passenger seat and a single receipt. For what? Dane swallowed. A cup of tea. Purchased at 5:17 a.m. And the timestamp matches security footage. Jenna bought it. Alone. Mara felt a sharp pull in her chest. Jenna wasn't some missing person pulled from obscurity. Mara knew her. Had known her for years. Jenna had been a volunteer at one of the youth programs Mara ran before joining Major Crimes. Kind. Patient. The type of person people trusted instantly. And now she'd vanished in less than 10 minutes of walking distance from where she parked. Mara's mind flashed through their last conversation, 2 weeks ago at the grocery store. Jenna had laughed about how much she hated winter and said she was planning a weekend trip away from everything. When Mara asked where, she smiled in a way that hinted she didn't want to say. Now that smile haunted the back of Mara's thoughts. Dane cleared his throat. "Detective, there's more. You need to see this." He led her toward a small maintenance shack at the edge of the pier. A pair of officers stepped aside as Mara entered. On the table inside, under a harsh fluorescent lamp, lay a single envelope sealed with tape. "Found inside bag, evidence hold. Do not open." "What is it?" Mara asked. "Look at the back," Dane said. On the reverse side, written in thick black marker: "If you want to find her, follow the trail. Do not call the press." "That's all?" she asked. Dane shook his head and slid a second photo onto the table. This was taped to the inside of the envelope. Mara stared. It wasn't a threatening message, not directly. It was a photograph of Jenna alive, clearly recent, sitting at a cafe table. But next to her on the table was a silver charm bracelet. Jenna's bracelet. The one she never took off. But in person, just an hour ago when the jogger found the bag, That bracelet had been meticulously placed on top of Jenna's folded coat inside. Mara narrowed her eyes. Someone wants us to believe she was being watched. Dane nodded. And they want us chasing crumbs. But why leave this at a public pier? Why risk it being stolen, tossed, or found by the wrong people? Dane hesitated. Because they expected the right person to find it. And who would that be? He looked up. You. Silence settled like dust around them. Mara's mind fired through possibilities. She had worked high-profile cases. She had made enemies. But Jenna? There was no logical link. No reason for a criminal to target her, let alone draw Mara into a breadcrumb chase. Unless this wasn't about Jenna at all. Unless Jenna was leverage. Dane continued, Dispatch got an anonymous call 30 minutes ago. No ID, voice masked. The caller said, the detective knows why this is happening. Then hung up. Mara felt a slow, icy dread crawl up her spine. That's not possible. You sure? She didn't respond, because she didn't have an answer. The last time anyone told Mara she knew why something was happening, it was during a case that nearly cost her everything, a case involving a man who manipulated evidence, orchestrated alibis, and always stayed a step ahead. A man they believed disappeared years ago under a new identity. A man known only as the broker. But she refused to say the name aloud. Not yet. Not without proof. Asterisk asterisk. The sun never truly rose that morning. Grey light seeped over the harbor like diluted ink, barely pushing back the fog. Forensic teams swept the area, but nothing pointed to where Jenna had gone or who had taken her. At 8:23 a.m., Mara and Dane returned to headquarters with the bag and envelope held as evidence. The case immediately activated an emergency task force. Missing persons. Digital forensics. Behavioral analysis. And still, every piece of information pointed in different directions, none coherent enough to form a real lead. At 10:04 a.m., something finally broke. Detective Keaton, you need to see this. Officer Patel rushed into the operations room, holding a tablet with a paused video frame. Traffic cam footage from 2 blocks from where Jenna parked. The grainy footage showed a sedan pulling up to the curb at 5:20 a.m. Jenna exited the driver's seat, holding her tea. She adjusted her scarf, locked her car, then began walking toward the pier. Everything looked normal, until a figure appeared at the edge of the screen. A dark blue SUV rolled slowly behind her, brake lights flickering before disappearing from view. The SUV wasn't driving erratically, wasn't speeding, wasn't following too close. But Mara recognized the model, the tinted windows, the faint dent near the front bumper. She had seen that vehicle before. Years ago. During an undercover operation involving the broker's network. It was registered to a company that didn't exist. A paper shell inside a paper shell. Her heart thudded. She leaned closer. Pause. Zoom. The camera enhanced the frame as much as it could. Not enough to see the driver. But enough to show one thing clearly. A broken license plate holder. Exactly like the one she remembered. Dane exhaled sharply. You think this is him? I think someone wants us to believe it is, Mara said. Which is worse? Before Dane could respond, another officer entered. Detective. Evidence just came back from the lab. Mara turned. The envelope. The officer nodded. There was no fingerprint on the outside. But inside, the tape had a partial. Mara felt her pulse jump. Do we have a match? The officer swallowed. Yes. And you're not going to like it. He handed her the printed results. When Mara read the name, her hands froze. No, that couldn't be right. The fingerprint belonged to someone who should not have been anywhere near this case. Someone who had been gone for 5 years. Someone whose file was sealed, career ended, and name spoken only in court transcripts. Detective Samuel Reddick. Her former partner. A man she once trusted with her life until he betrayed their unit and vanished after a corruption probe. Mara stared at the paper, her breath slowly leaving her chest. Dane stepped closer. Tell me this is wrong. But it wasn't. If Reddick's print was inside the envelope, then either he wanted to be found, Or someone wanted to drag them into the past. Mara folded the lab report and placed it on the table. Get everything you can on Samuel Reddick, she said quietly. Last known address, last known associates. Bank activity. Travel logs. I want every door kicked open. Dane nodded and began issuing orders. But deep down, Mara knew something else. Reddick wouldn't leave evidence by accident. He was careful, meticulous, invisible when he needed to be. So if he left that print, it was deliberate. A message. And Mara already knew what it meant. The trail doesn't start where you think. It starts where we ended. Her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She answered. A distorted voice whispered, "You're already behind, detective." The line cut. Mara's blood ran cold. Because the voice wasn't Reddick's. Which meant someone else was playing this game. Someone who knew her past. Someone who knew Reddick. Someone who had Jenna. The realization hit her so hard she couldn't breathe. This wasn't a kidnapping. This was a setup. And when she turned toward the evidence table, she saw the envelope again, its message burning into her mind. Follow the trail. But follow it where? To whom? And at what cost? She didn't have an answer. Not until they received the next piece of evidence. And when they opened that locked basement door, what they found changed everything. The basement door groaned as it opened, the sound echoing like a warning. A cold draft drifted out first, carrying a faint smell of dust, metal, and something older, something forgotten. Mara stepped inside slowly, her flashlight slicing through shadows that clung stubbornly to the walls. The narrow concrete stairs descended into darkness, each step feeling less like movement and more like a surrender to whatever truth waited beneath. This wasn't Jenna's home, nor any property tied to a suspect. It was an abandoned storage building 2 blocks from the pier, discovered after a neighborhood resident reported hearing footsteps last night. Its lock had been snapped cleanly, no force, no damage, just precision. Whoever had been here didn't want to break in. They wanted to leave something. Dane followed close behind. You sure it's safe? No, Mara said. But we're past safe. At the bottom of the stairs, the room opened wide, illuminated only by scattered slivers of light squeezing through boarded windows. Dust floated in the air like drifting snow. Old furniture sat in crooked piles. Rusted filing cabinets leaned as if exhausted by time. A large mirror lay cracked along the wall, reflecting shards of the flashlight beam. And in the center of the room was a single desk. Clean. Untouched. Out of place. On it sat a small metal box, no bigger than a lunch container. Its surface was spotless, as if someone had wiped it down minutes before their arrival. Mara and Dane exchanged a look. Dane whispered, "This is getting theatrical." "Not theatrical," Mara said. "Strategic." She approached the box. No lock. No tape. Just a lid resting lightly in place. She lifted it. Inside was a USB drive, a folded sheet of paper, and a Polaroid photograph. She picked up the photo first. Her breath caught. It wasn't Jenna this time. It was Samuel Reddick, her former partner, standing outside a gas station. Looking older. Thinner. Wearing a dark jacket. His eyes were fixed directly on the camera as if he knew the moment was being captured. Dane leaned closer. Date stamp says last month. Mara felt something twist inside her. If Reddick was alive and in the city a month ago, then everything she believed about him was wrong. Or someone wanted her to think it was wrong. She unfolded the paper next. One sentence. He tried to warn you. Mara stared at it for a long moment. Her pulse quickened. She turned the note over. The back was blank. Dane pointed to the USB. Only thing left. Mara placed it into a protective evidence sleeve. Let's take it back to the lab. But before they reached the stairs, Mara's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. She answered. A voice, barely above a whisper, spoke in a calm rhythm that felt rehearsed. You're following the trail. Good. But you're still looking in the wrong direction. Mara felt her jaw tighten. Where is Jenna? You'll reach her, the voice said. If you stop chasing ghosts. Who are you? Silence. Then the voice replied, The one who knows why Reddick disappeared. Mara's grip tightened. If this is about him. It was always about him. And now it's about you. The call ended. Dane looked at her. Same voice. She nodded slowly. But clearer. More confident. That doesn't scare me, Dane said, but it should. ***. Back at headquarters, the digital forensics unit plugged in the USB. Mara and Dane stood behind the analysts, watching as a folder appeared on the screen. One file. Video. No title. The analyst clicked it open. The screen filled with the interior of a moving vehicle. The camera was mounted on the dashboard. Outside the windshield, headlights cut through darkness. The timestamp showed exactly 5:38 a.m., 4 minutes before Jenna's belongings were found. A man sat in the driver's seat. Samuel Reddick. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. His face looked calm, almost resigned. He adjusted the camera and leaned closer. If you're seeing this, Reddick began, then they got to her. And that means I failed. Dane's eyes widened. He recorded this before Jenna vanished. Mara shook her head. Or before she was taken somewhere else. Reddick continued, Detective Keaton. Mara. I know you won't believe anything I say. I don't blame you. But you need to listen. This isn't a kidnapping. This is a misdirection. They want you chasing me. They want you remembering everything about the old case. Because the real motive isn't in the present. He paused, his breathing uneven. It's buried in what we found 5 years ago. And what we didn't report. Mara felt her stomach drop. Dane turned. What didn't you report? But Mara didn't answer. Her mind was already spinning. There were details from that old case they had kept internal. Not illegal, just sensitive, tied to an ongoing investigation involving an underground network that used coded transactions and shell companies. The broker's network. Reddick spoke again. They know you're the only one who can connect the pieces. They know you'll fight it. But if you want to find her, you must stop thinking like a detective. He leaned closer, voice barely audible. Think like the person who took her. The video froze abruptly. End of file. Silence thickened in the room. Dane finally said, he's not talking like a man on the run. He's talking like a man trying to make amends. Mara exhaled slowly. Or like a man being coerced. But the message is meant to manipulate us, Mara said firmly. Either to trust him or to blame him. And we can't afford either assumption. The analyst cleared his throat. Detective, there's metadata attached to the video. Mara leaned over the screen. GPS stamps. Coordinates. To a warehouse outside the city. Mara grabbed her coat. We move now. ***. The warehouse sat alone at the edge of an industrial district. Grey sky pressed down over the landscape. The building was massive, with peeling paint and a sagging roof. Weeds pushed through cracks in the asphalt. SWAT surrounded the perimeter. Mara and Dane led the entry team inside. The door creaked open. Inside, the air was cold and stale. The space was empty except for rows of wooden pallets and a single hanging light bulb flickering weakly above. No people. No movement. No Jenna. But on the floor, directly beneath the light, was a folder. Dane swallowed. Not again. Mara opened it. Inside were printouts of bank transfers, shell company registrations, offshore routing logs, all tied to the very network that Reddick's old case targeted. But the dates were recent. Some as recent as 3 days ago. At the back of the folder was a final page. A photograph. Not of Reddick. Not of Jenna. But of Mara. Standing outside her apartment yesterday morning. Dane whispered, "They're watching you." Mara stared at the photo. Her chest tightened. Whoever orchestrated this wasn't just using Jenna as leverage. They were monitoring every move, every decision. Someone close. Someone with access. And then Dane noticed it. Behind Mara in the photograph, reflected faintly in a window, was the outline of a person holding a camera. Too blurry to identify, but undeniable. A shadow trailing her. This isn't about Reddick, Mara said quietly. It's about whoever he was chasing before he vanished. Someone who thinks I'm the only one who can finish what he started. Dane nodded slowly. The broker. Mara didn't confirm it aloud, but the possibility pressed heavy on her. Because the broker wasn't just a criminal. He was a strategist. A manipulator. Someone who never left evidence behind unless he wanted it to be found. And these breadcrumbs. The bag. The note. The USB. The warehouse. Felt exactly like his work. But why target Jenna? She had no connection to any of this. Unless the connection wasn't about her. Unless the connection was about Mara. Asterisk asterisk. Back at headquarters, an urgent alert flashed across the operations room. A traffic camera had captured the blue SUV again. This time near the northbound expressway. And in the passenger seat, a silhouette matching Jenna's frame. The footage wasn't graphic. Nothing violent. But it was unmistakably her. Her posture. The way she held her arms. The slight tilt of her head. She was alive. Mara felt her pulse spike. Get a team on the expressway. Pull every camera feed. Every toll booth log. But before the team could mobilize, a second alert hit the screens. Another USB drive had been dropped at the front desk of the police headquarters. No one saw who left it. The security camera glitch for 9 seconds. Just 9 seconds. Planned. Calculated. Intentional. Mara grabbed the USB and rushed it to digital forensics. The moment it loaded, a new video appeared. This time, the screen was dark. Too dark to make out shapes. Only a faint breathing sound. Then a voice, not Jenna's, not Reddick's, spoke calmly. You're getting closer, detective. But every minute you chase the wrong lead, you lose another minute to save her. Mara leaned closer, fists clenched. What do you want? She whispered at the screen. As if answering her, the voice continued. Follow the next coordinates. Come alone. And leave your badge behind. Then the video cut. The room fell silent. Dane turned to Mara, alarm in his eyes. You're not going alone. No way. But Mara wasn't listening. Because beneath the final frame of the video, at the very bottom corner, was something only she would notice. A reflection. A faint outline. A clue meant exclusively for her. And it was from Jenna. A small motion with her hand, 3 taps on the surface of whatever she was leaning against. 3 taps. Their old youth center signal for someone else is here. Don't trust what you hear. Mara's breath caught. Jenna was alive. And she was signaling. Which meant one thing. The person speaking wasn't the one holding her. Someone else was involved. Someone orchestrating the entire game from afar. Someone who wanted Mara alone for a reason she couldn't yet see. And now she had to make a choice. Follow the coordinates alone. Or break the rules and risk Jenna's life. Before she could decide, another alert appeared on the monitor. A location ping. A cabin outside the city, deep in the wooded outskirts. The first real location tied directly to Jenna. And the moment Mara saw the address, her blood turned cold. Because she knew that cabin. It belonged to someone she once trusted. Someone she believed had disappeared from her life for good. Someone whose name she had hoped never to see attached to a case again. And that name was written at the bottom of the coordinates file like a signature. Samuel Reddick. But when they reached the cabin, the truth waiting inside would tear the investigation wide open. The road to the cabin twisted like a serpent through the forest, each turn tightening the coil around Mara's chest. Pine branches scraped the sides of the SUV, and patches of fog clung to the earth in long, ghostly bands. Dawn hadn't broken yet. The dim headlights cut through the dark, revealing only fleeting glimpses of the winding path ahead. Dane drove. His jaw was tense. He'd argued for an hour that this was a trap, that no one leaves coordinates unless they're setting the stage. But Mara refused to go alone. Whoever planned this had already predicted every move they'd made, every reaction, every assumption. Not this one. As they approached the clearing, the cabin emerged from the darkness, silent, weathered, half swallowed by trees. The wooden structure sagged slightly, as though weighed down by memories. Its windows were black mirrors. Mara stepped out first, her boots crunching through frost. A single porch light flickered weakly, casting a pale yellow halo on the door. She glanced at Dane. "Backup stays 5 minutes out," he whispered. "Good," she replied. "We don't want whoever's in there getting spooked." But the real truth was simpler. Mara wanted to see this with her own eyes without the noise of a full tactical team. This wasn't a raid. It was reckoning. They approached the door slowly. No movement inside. No shadows. No sound. Dane lifted his flashlight. "You ready?" "No," Mara said. "But we're here anyway." She turned the rusty knob. The door opened. Not forced. Not locked. Waiting. Asterisk asterisk. Inside, the cabin was still unnervingly still. Dust coated the air like a fine mist. A small table sat in the center of the room with a single lamp glowing faintly beside it. And on the table, placed neatly and deliberately, was a file. But not an ordinary one. Mara recognized it instantly. A file from her old case. The one she and Reddick worked on before he vanished. She stepped toward it, her pulse pounding against her ribs. Dane moved to the left, sweeping the room. Clear. A faint creak sounded from deeper inside. Both froze. Mara drew her weapon. Dane raised his light. "Second room," he breathed. They moved as one. At the end of the narrow hallway was a closed door. A sliver of light glowed beneath it. Mara approached quietly. 1 breath. 2. She pushed the door open. And there, sitting on the floor, hands bound, eyes red but alert, was Jenna. Alive. She gasped when she saw Mara. "You came." Mara dropped to her knees. "You're safe. We've got you." Dane rushed to untie her wrists while Mara checked her for injuries. Nothing severe. No visible harm. But Jenna was trembling, not from cold, from fear. "They moved me," Jenna whispered. "They kept moving me. Different rooms. Different buildings. Sometimes a voice, never a face." "Did you see who brought you here?" Mara asked. "No," Jenna whispered. They said he would explain. That he owed you answers." Mara's stomach tightened. "Who?" Jenna swallowed. Her eyes drifted to the corner of the room. Mara followed her gaze. A figure stepped forward slowly, weakly, from the shadows. It was Samuel Reddick. Older. Exhausted. But unmistakably him. Dane motioned to raise his weapon. Mara held out a hand. "Wait." Reddick lifted both palms, showing he wasn't armed. "Mara," he said softly. "I didn't take her." Mara's throat tightened. "Then why is she here? Why did your coordinate lead us?" "Because," Reddick said, voice cracking, "this is where they wanted you. And I needed to reach you first." He stepped into the light, and Mara saw something she never expected. He was scared. She had never seen Reddick afraid, not even on their worst cases. Whatever he'd been running from these past 5 years, it had finally caught him. Jenna clutched Mara's arm. "He saved me. Last night." Mara's heart stopped. "What?" Reddick nodded. "I found her in a warehouse on the river. They were moving her again. I got her out the back before the others returned." "Others?" Dane asked. Reddick looked at him. "There are at least 3 people involved. Maybe more. You've been chasing the clues they wanted you to chase. Pieces they designed. They're trying to make you think I was behind this. Because you were the easiest suspect," Mara said quietly. "Yes," Reddick whispered. "And because they knew you'd follow evidence before instinct." Dane stepped forward. "Then explain the fingerprint." Reddick's face tightened with shame. "Planted. From files stolen years ago. They've had access longer than you realize." Mara felt a cold realization sink deep. This wasn't a game of cat and mouse. This was misdirection on a scale designed to weaponize her own history against her. Jenna shivered. "They kept asking about you, Mara. About something you and she looked at Reddick, found years ago. Something you never turned in." Mara's mouth went dry. The memory hit her like a flash of lightning. A storage unit. A ledger. Dozens of coded names. A financial trail leading to a man they could never confirm existed. The broker. Reddick saw the recognition on her face. You remember. How do they know about it? Mara whispered. Because, Reddick said, someone in our own department leaked it. The room went silent. Dane looked stunned. Jenna covered her mouth. Mara's pulse pounded. Who? She demanded. Reddick took a step closer. I don't know the name. But I know the position. He swallowed. Someone high enough to bury evidence and access our old case files. Mara's mind raced through names, ranks, possibilities. Before she could speak, a loud crack tore through the quiet. A gunshot. The window behind Reddick shattered. Dane grabbed Jenna and ducked. Mara's heart jumped. Get down. Reddick staggered but didn't fall. The bullet had missed him by inches. Dane shouted, Sniper, front woods. Mara pulled Reddick behind the wall. How did they find us? Reddick's eyes filled with regret. Because I led them here. What? I had no choice, he said. They said if I didn't send the coordinates, Jenna wouldn't make it through the night. Mara felt the floor tilt beneath her. They used you, she whispered. Reddick nodded painfully. They were always watching. Another shot cracked through the cabin. Wood splintered. Move. Dane yelled. Back exit now. They pulled Jenna up. Reddick followed, limping slightly. The group raced down the hallway toward the rear door. But before they reached it, the cabin lights flickered. Then died. Darkness swallowed them. Jenna gasped. Dane cursed. Mara's voice was steady. Phones out. Flashlights only. They clicked on beams of light, thin, shaky, barely cutting through the black. Footsteps crunched outside. Not one set. 3. Then. A voice. Calm. Deep. Confident. You found the last piece, detective. Mara froze. The voice wasn't from outside. It was coming through a speaker somewhere in the cabin. The same voice from the USB. Dane swept his flashlight across the walls. They wired the place. The voice continued. You brought everyone I needed into one place. The loose ends. The witnesses. The traitor. Reddick stiffened. He's talking about me. And Jenna, Mara said quietly. And maybe, me. The voice dropped lower. The truth is simple. This case was never about your detective work. It was about who could be controlled. Manipulated. Predicted. Mara clenched her jaw. What do you want? A long silence. Then. To finish what Reddick failed to do. Reddick's breath hitched. You don't understand. Oh, I understand, the voice said. You tried to expose me once. But Mara convinced the department to seal the case, didn't she? Mara's heart stopped. Dane turned sharply. What is he talking about? Mara swallowed hard. The evidence wasn't strong enough. I thought exposing a ghost would destroy the unit. And you were right, the voice said. So I let you believe I disappeared. That I was gone. Mara felt cold all over. You're the broker. The voice gave a soft, chilling chuckle. I never left, detective. I just changed rooms. Reddick whispered, he's inside the department. Jenna trembled. Then we don't stand a chance. Mara raised her voice. If you want me, take me. Leave them out. Oh, I will take you, the voice replied. But first. I need one more loose end tied. A click. A mechanical whir. Something metal shifted overhead. Dane looked up. That's, he rigged the ceiling. Move. Mara shouted. A heavy wooden beam crashed down. Dust exploded through the air. They dove aside, coughing, scrambling. Dane dragged Jenna toward the exit while Reddick shielded Mara. Outside, flashlights flickered through the trees, backup units finally closing in. The voice hissed. I'll be in touch, detective. The game isn't over. You've only found the first truth. Mara shouted, show yourself. A final whisper echoed through the speaker. You can't catch someone who's already inside your investigation. A loud pop, then sparks. The speakers died. Reddick exhaled shakily. He's gone. Dane pushed open the back door. Officers flooded the clearing. Jenna collapsed into their arms, trembling but safe. Reddick leaned against the doorframe, exhausted. He planned all of this to test you. Mara looked out at the dark tree line. No, she whispered. He planned this to warn me. Dane frowned. Warn you about what? Mara's eyes narrowed as she scanned the woods. That he isn't finished. Her phone buzzed. A new message. No sender. Just one line. You saved her. Good. Now save yourself. Mara felt a chill crawl up her spine. Because beneath the message was an attachment. A picture. Not of Jenna. Not of Reddick. A picture taken inside the police precinct. Her desk. Her chair. Her badge. Taken just minutes ago. She realized the truth with a sinking certainty. The broker wasn't hunting her from the outside. He was already inside the building. Watching. Planning. Waiting. And the trail wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Asterisk asterisk. If you thought this story was intense, the next one will break everything you thought you knew. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.